If you don't care, you're going to be back at the store with a little baby. If you care a lot, then you've got...
We've had friends who were literally labor and delivery nurses who didn't know anything about this.
Just go to the bike path. They do not ride as smooth. The kids don't fit in them as well.
The difference between having a registry or not. You should...
You poked me. Cicadas are chirping, so if you hear a little background noise, that's what it is. This is real life with Paris and Kev, your favorite baby registry consultants. Let's get it.
Why don't we just fire down the whole round? Let's just do it.
Yeah, let's just...
Baby, baby, mama.
Okay. All baby gear is safe. Bull. Okay. Misconception number 1, all baby gear is safe.
Yeah.
That is not even close. Like, you really have to be careful nowadays. There's so many bootleg products that come in all different ways. You can always go to the CPSC website. We'll have a link down below, and you can check if it is recalled or not.
Some things though you just have to go with your gut, and if your gut's telling you it's probably not safe, but your friends are like, "Oh, it's great," just maybe go with your gut.
True. No matter when your baby is due, there's always something in that window that's like on the verge of recall.
You need to understand what the safety standards are and understand what you feel comfortable with.
There's another layer to it, and that is, okay, when you're looking at the safety of baby gear, you have to look at not only are you buying something that's not a bootleg, you have to look at if the product's been recalled, but the last thing you have to look at is if you're using it correctly.
Yeah.
And that's probably the biggest piece about it, because, you know, even like a baby monitor becomes incredibly dangerous when the cord is too close to the crib.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So even items that are designed for safety, car seats are dangerous when they're used wrong. Read the manual. Make sure you're following the best practices in terms of safety, if it's a product in your home, in terms of baby proofing. And yeah, it's not safe just because it's baby gear. That's the point. Misconception number 2, baby registries aren't necessary. You see this a lot. People are like, oh, I'm just going to buy this stuff. And I feel like this is actually like a really common thing right now, where everyone's like, oh, I'm just going to buy it, like it doesn't matter. But man, I feel like this is a little bit misled, because this isn't always just coming from like folks that are just balling out of control.
No, they're just going to wing it. The registry really is necessary. You need to know what you are needing for your baby. And it's a lot more than what you think it is. There's a lot of little things that you're going to need, and you're not going to remember them all. And some people think that they're not necessary, but they just do it just because other people are asking. And what they do is they just put on a bunch of stuff and just are like, do whatever. They're still going to have a baby shower, buy whatever you want. If you do that, you're going to end up with random things. Just random things. You're going to be completely unprepared. It's better to know what it takes to actually successfully raise a baby, no matter what you're going to raise the baby.
Yeah.
But
even whether or not a baby registry is involved.
Whether or not you have mass amounts of stress doing it is the difference between having a registry or not. You
poked me.
Oh, I am sorry.
I don't care. I don't care. So, okay, wait. For baby registries, they are actually not necessary. Like, when it comes down to it, there could be another way to get the baby gear that you need to take care of your baby.
Sure.
And obviously, in some settings, like, you don't even need a lot. But
people want to help you, and it's a good place to point them.
Yeah, and also, it's extremely practical. And I think if you're just saying, oh, no, I don't really need a baby registry, later on, you're going to probably be scrambling for a lot of that gear that you might have gotten. Maybe the bigger misconception is that babies just don't cost as much as they do. Mm-hmm. Some studies are showing, like, the first year, there's that New York Life one or whatever, like the ones that the insurance companies quote all the time. It shows $20K to $50K for the first year. I don't know.
As much help as you can get. And people want to get you things that are going to be helpful. They want their things to be used. They don't want to just get you junk. That's why it is important. They want to be pointed to somewhere where you have stuff that you need for your baby.
I think it is worthwhile to do your research around what baby gear that you want and just plan for it, because it really can add a whole lot of convenience to your life.
Mm-hmm.
Just having having a registry can just be extremely helpful. Reduce the amount of stress that you have both before and after welcoming a baby. So
Yeah.
it's just useful.
Yeah.
Let's go on to misconception number 3, and that is you should buy everything before the baby arrives. No, you don't have to.
No, you don't need everything. I would say definitely focus on like the first 6 months though, or like up to introducing solids. So like month 0 through 5 is the most important to focus on.
But even with the nursery doesn't have to be like fully set up.
Oh yeah, no, it could be your storage area for a while, which it probably will be a little bit,
especially if they're not sleeping in there.
Yeah,
which
it can be like your quiet space to meditate, just the clothes in there. Someday they will use it, but yeah, it will take a while for them to actually get there. So don't worry about that. That's more of a nesting thing. That's more something for you while you're pregnant to prepare the nursery than it is after the baby arrives.
Yeah, and the fact is you're just going to be purchasing plenty of things after the baby arrives anyways, because you're going to have to be adapting to certain specific needs that they have. Maybe they have different preferences, like we always talk about with bottles.
You're just going to be so sleep deprived and out of your mind and like, how do I get this baby to do this or that? Insert whatever it may be. And then you're probably just going to randomly buy something on Amazon, or 5 things on Amazon.
Like for us, like we had, I mean, there was a number of things that we probably should have waited until after the babies arrived to get. Like we had the bottles, the Tommy Tippy we did not like.
We did not know better.
They were just way too many parts and way too hard to clean.
We didn't know that the babies choose the bottles.
Which is a weird thing.
It does make sense, though, if you think about it.
Anyways, the Tommy Tippy bottles, obviously they advertise the anti-colic.
Anti-colic,
but
free of all kinds of chemicals.
Yes.
Also, that it is closer to the shape of the natural breast than other bottles at the time. I'm not sure that's so true now, because there are a lot of bottles that are like that now.
The problem we had is that the nipple that came with a 4-ounce bottle, the flow rate was too fast. Yeah. And also, we couldn't even keep up keeping them clean with twins because there's so many parts. Okay, misconception number 4, expensive means better. That's almost never the case. If you group everything together, you see sort of these categories. You see the budget stuff, and there's a certain way that it's made.
Yeah.
And sometimes the issue with how it's made affects the performance that happens. And then same thing from the mid-range to the high end. But a lot of times, I think especially from the high-end product to the mid-range, there's going to be something that's just about as easy to use. Maybe it doesn't look like the Rolls Royce, but it drives really nice.
Yeah, I feel like a good example of that would be the high chairs.
Yeah.
Where you can get the Antelope high chair from IKEA for $20, $19.99.
That really is the budget option there, though. That's not even the mid.
No, that is the budget.
Yeah.
That's the budget option. It works great. Isn't very pretty. And also is big. I know that they sell like an insert for it. But honestly, when 6-month-olds are actually in the high chair, they sit very far back from the seat. They do sell like a blow-up insert where it will push them forward. But we never had that.
As far as the ergonomics for the babies, it's not that different from some of the higher-end high chairs.
It serves the same purpose. The way the plastic
is different. The look of the legs is different. But the overall shape and fit isn't.
Yeah, it just, as far as expensive versus inexpensive products go, it's not necessarily better. It just depends on what your definition of better is. Obviously, like what I was saying with the high chair, the Antelope being the low price point, the Trip Trap high chair being a high price point for high chairs. They both serve the same purpose. It depends on what you value. The Antelope high chair, you can store it away and stuff. You could probably just stick pretty much the entire thing in the dishwasher if you really wanted to. If you took off the tray, probably just do that, except for the legs, of course. The Trip Trap, you could potentially keep like forever as a chair. So
where I noticed the difference in quality the most And it doesn't mean it's always better, but a lot of times in the strollers, just seeing them on the bike path and on the trail, oh my gosh, to see something like an Up a Baby cruise, it looks like it's heavy and gripping the path and sturdy. And then you see some of these others and they're like, people online, they're like, I bought this, it's just as good. No, it's not. You see them on the bike path, the plastic is flimsy and flapping and the kids sinking in and all this stuff, aluminum or steel is now plastic. Just go to the bike path. They do not ride as smooth. The kids don't fit in them as well. Will it get you by? Yeah. Is it fine? Yeah. But there is a quality difference in some of this stuff.
That's true.
It doesn't always mean that it's better. And certainly better can encompass budget as well. But a lot of times, especially in the strollers, they are higher quality builds above a certain price point.
I have to say, sometimes brands get a little cocky and they start skimping on the quality of their product. Now, once their brand has become a trusted brand, then they start going down to the level of just about anyone else, but people will still buy it because of the brand. I am not sure that I would want to say.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about brand, but like I'm just saying in some of the more expensive tiers, you'll find higher quality. So for instance, like a stroller travel system, look at it yourself. Like I don't have any special love for high-end strollers. I'm just saying on the path, I can see the difference. Okay, so misconception 4, expensive means better. It doesn't necessarily mean better, but sometimes expensive means better.
Yeah. Sometimes.
But not just because it's expensive. Check and see if it's actually better. That would be my tip there.
Yeah.
Misconception number 5, all registry checklists are the same. Actually, they're all over the place.
They are. A lot of them are just very different from each other.
And why? Why is this?
Because people, they disagree on what may or may not belong on a baby registry. Obviously, we also disagree on some things. What belongs.
You and me. I think we do sometimes.
Maybe sometimes. Honestly, I feel like it is sometimes situational.
Yeah. Well, I think it's all the time situational in terms of what essentials are.
Even my rules for it, like my rules for it, are still situational.
So the reason that I think a lot of the registry checklists are not the same is because a lot of the registry checklists are trying to sell different things.
Yes, I 100% agree.
Registry checklists just don't cut it because you need more than a checklist. You need to actually think through on a family by family basis what needs to go on a baby registry.
Yes.
So that's the problem.
A registry checklist is a guide, but it's not like a scavenger hunt where you look and find every single thing on the list. You maybe could start that way, but that's maybe not your life. That's maybe not everyone.
Yeah.
You don't need every single thing that's on there. If you want to just go through a checklist, you can. Honestly, something that I have found helpful is actually going through a checklist. You could just go ahead and maybe knock off the things that you know for a fact that you don't need, and just put all the rest of those things on your baby registry, and then go through and relook at it. Yeah. Maybe like a day or two later, relook at it, but like with your own self in mind, with your own family, your own partner, your own life. Consider it then with fresh eyes. And you might be like, oh, you know what? This actually needs to be like this. This needs to be here. This is, oh, we don't need that. Oh, we need this. It'll help to just go through the baby registry with fresh eyes after going through the checklist.
Yeah, I will say that one aspect of building a baby registry that we have huge advantages, registry consultants, is that we can really develop a checklist rather fast.
Yes.
Seeing all the patterns and what really needs to go on to a baby registry. Yeah. And knowing that really inside and out over the course of several years.
Yeah, that is true.
Okay, so this leads into misconception number 6, which is it's easier than what it actually is.
Yeah.
It's a very big misconception. There's so much work and research. If you don't care, you're going to be back at the store with a little baby. Mm-hmm. Or and you're going to be trying to get to the UPS store or something, FedEx. If you care a lot, then you've got hours of work ahead trying to do all that research depending on where you're starting from and yes. what you know and don't know. The issue with that is for as a first-time parent, you probably don't have that knowledge unless you spent years as a nanny or in childcare. Then you might know, but otherwise, it's very
Maybe.
hard.
We've had friends who were literally labor and delivery nurses who didn't know anything about this. You don't know what you don't know. There's nothing wrong with that. But just understand that this is not actually an easy process. This is very time consuming.
If you're doing if you're doing all that research around all the major products.
Which I highly recommend that you do. Otherwise, you may end up with some things that you don't need, some things that are very dangerous, some things that are outdated. It's just it's important to have an understanding of what goes into a baby registry, what your baby needs, and when they will be used. Yes.
And that brings us to misconception number 7. You don't need helper advice. Get as much helper advice as you can. Like, seriously, if you've never done this before, there's certain nuances that you learn about when you become a parent. Even if you did some babysitting, even if you did some childcare, like there's some things that go with being a parent that it's just helpful to know. And the only way that you can really do that is by talking to parents and people that know. Yeah, so I know some parents are reluctant to get advice about their baby registry and about their baby gear. And I was actually the same way because I'm the oldest of 5 and spent a lot of time in my teenage, early adult years doing some babysitting. And so I thought it was like going to be a certain way, especially when it came to baby gear. But the part I failed to realize is that, okay, when there's so many people in the household, there's a lot of hands that can take care of baby, which a lot of baby gear has to do with where to put baby at any given time. So I didn't really understand that, but thankfully, like, you were powering through and coming up with so many of these strategies and how to use things, and both on the road and at home. So that was really helpful. And that's something that I really learned on the fly going through this, thinking that I didn't need any help, but in the long run, realizing that I did. And then it's just been this process of pushing that further and further ever since day 0.
Yeah. Be aware of your realities, I think, is a good way to.
Or just ask. And then you start to get some insights. I know you were talking about, like, when you were on Reddit and the baby bumper communities and being a part of that, and like how that filled you in on so many things that, you didn't know before.
Yeah.
Obviously, our conversations.
You can anticipate what life's a little bit going to be like. Your partner's paternity leave, maternity leave, whatever it may be, your own maternity leave or paternity leave, whoever's watching, whole entire structure, what the timeline is of what it's going to be like, who's going to be caring for your baby or babies, and how many people are going to be around, and for how long that help is going to last, and everything. So if you're aware of those things, that will help you a lot in determining what needs to happen, what gear you need, especially.
Yeah, and the other thing too is just when it comes to helper advice, like even for me, I'll just speak for myself, someone who's in baby gear all the time, baby registry consultant, CPST, design training, parent of twins, I'm constantly learning stuff. And I know for a lot of people who are in the baby gear space, it's really hard to even call yourself an expert, even if more than everybody else, just because things change so fast and we're all learning together. So I think certainly if you're looking at welcoming your first, understand that there is just so much to know, and that this journey of parenthood, starting with your baby registry, it's going to be a learning process for many years. So don't be embarrassed if you don't know something. Ask, because even for the professionals, sneaky things come up where it's like, how did I not know that? And that happens all the time. There's just so much to know. Obviously, we're here for that reason. So if you need help, this podcast is here for that reason. So go and subscribe, leave a review. So what do we talk about? We talked about these 7 misconceptions. 1, that all baby gear is safe. No, the retailer is not deciding whether it's safe necessarily for you. So do your research. Baby registries aren't necessary. They may not strictly be necessary, but they sure could be pretty helpful in today's world. Misconception number 3, you should buy everything before the baby arrives. No, you really don't have to. If you're following safe sleep recommendations or sleeping in your room anyways, you don't necessarily need everything for the nursery. And you certainly can focus earlier on
0 to
their
5
needs.
months. Tackle the first half of the year and then
Right.
the other half later.
Especially if money is tight or space, you don't have very much space.
Don't worry about the solids yet.
Yeah, just shift everything up. Misconception number 4, expensive means better. Not always the case. There are some products found that performed incredibly well. And we also hear feedback from folks that bought products in a more expensive range that just couldn't stand them at all. So you really got to find the product that's right for you and look at some of the performance features just versus looking at the price tag when it comes to that. Number 5, all registry checklists are all the same. They're all over the place. Most of the registry checklists are going to be different because they're trying to sell you different stuff. The reality is there's not going to be any one checklist that's perfect for you. You really have to figure it out based on your own needs. Misconception number 6, it's easier than it actually is. It's a lot of work, especially if you're trying to do a lot of research on specific products. But even if you're trying to get the download on the larger categories, developmental milestones, what life is actually going to look like with baby, that takes a lot of work. And finally, misconception 7, you don't need help or advice. So helpful to get advice, so helpful to find out the perspective of others, other parents, other professionals. Even if you've been focusing on nothing but baby gear and baby care for years, someone like me, someone like Paris, we're still always looking for information. Absolutely. And looking for
always learning
help and perspective of others in the space. Again, go and leave a review with your favorite podcast player, either at Apple Podcast or on Spotify. And we will see you again back here next week. Thank you.